Great pleasure. Joining me, Senator Ted Cruz from the state of Texas. Mr. Cruz, as always, sir, it's wonderful to see you. I want to talk to you about the overspending and the debt, but I also want to raise a point. I believe you talked about this yesterday. You want to reinstate military members who were fired over the COVID vaccination problem. And I think that's a worthy cause, and I wanted to just get your quick take on it, to help military members who were fired over the vaccination. It never made any sense to me. In fact, all this COVID stuff never made any sense. Yeah. And I just wanted you to just mention it briefly, if you would, sir.
Sure. Well, listen, there have been lots of COVID policies that have not made sense, that have been unfair, that have been wrong. I don't know that any have been more abusive under Joe Biden than Biden's firing thousands upon thousands of active duty servicemen and women, firing them because they made a personal decision not to get the COVID vaccine. Now, I've been leading the fight against those vaccine mandates since they came out. They were wrong the day they came out. They are wrong today, and they will be wrong years from now. And we just won a big victory, a victory that was very meaningful. Last month, as part of the National Defense Authorization Act, we repealed the Biden vaccine mandate in the military. So today, there is no longer a vaccine mandate. Today, they are no longer firing servicemen and women if they make the choice not to get the COVID vaccine. That was a big win. Unfortunately, at the Democrats' insistence, it was prospective only. In other words, it protects servicemen and women going forward, but it doesn't provide relief for the thousands of men and women who were forcefully terminated, forced to leave the military, or who were demoted and otherwise faced negative consequences. I've introduced legislation, it's called the Americans Act, to provide them relief for the thousands of servicemen and women who were fired, to enable them to re-enlist, be reinstated in the military, to return to their previous rank, to return to full benefits. And for those who choose not to re-enter the military, some have been forcibly removed, but they may have moved on to the private sector and be happy, to ensure that their discharge is an honorable discharge and not simply a general discharge, which ensures they receive the full benefits to which they're entitled. What Biden has done is fundamentally unfair, and I give my word to every soldier and sailor and airman and Marine and Coast Guardsman who was wrongfully fired by Biden's vaccine mandate. I will keep fighting for you until justice is served and until you receive what you've earned and what you're due for defending our nation.
Senator Cruz, just one small point additionally here. It's reported that the new chief of staff in the White House, this chap, Jeff Zients, if I'm pronouncing his name right, wasn't he the COVID czar who put these mandates into place in the first place, which can't be a good sign?
Oh, look, he was the COVID czar. He was these mandates were the brainchild of his. Look, I'll give you one quote he said in the middle of COVID. He said, quote, "For the unvaccinated, you're looking at a winter of severe illness and death. For yourselves, your families, and the hospitals you may soon overwhelm." You know what? I'm tired of these petty totalitarians who are happy to shut down your business, shut down your schools, send kids home from school, have you fired from your job, all if you don't comply with their dictate. And this is now Joe Biden's chief of staff. We know his approach to individual liberty, to small businesses, to economic freedom, and it is government power, and we will punish you if you don't comply. That certainly doesn't augur well for the next 2 years of the Biden White House.
All right, let me switch gears. Thank you for that. Let me just switch gears. I want to review the Biden classified document scandal that continues to deepen. Here's a quote from one of the Sunday talk shows from Mike Turner, who's the Republican head of the House Intelligence Committee. Please take a listen, Senator.
Clearly, he's become a serial classified document hoarder. I think this looks more like a cover-up than an investigation.
So I guess my question to you is, what do you think about it? Is this more a cover-up than investigation? You had this remarkable New York Times story, of all places, but, you know, good journalism is good journalism. 68 days or 69 days, They refused to share any information with the public.
Yep.
There was a cabal in the White House and the Justice Department and the FBI that hoarded this information and wouldn't let it out. And there's still a million questions. And I think you yourself have said it's high time they went to the University of Delaware, this Biden Policy Center, where tons of cartons may be around. What do you make of the state of play right now, Senator Cruz?
Well, number one, I think it was clearly a cover-up. They claim they discovered this on November 2nd. That was a week before the election. And the Biden White House covered it up. The Department of Justice covered it up. The FBI covered it up. When it comes to Donald Trump, they leak like a sieve. They tell you everything they're doing, and yet miraculously they managed to keep this the most hidden state secret. I think it was right next to the nuclear codes, not to let anyone know that apparently Joe Biden leaves classified documents, practically in the glove compartment of his Corvette, just about everywhere he seems to go. I think, secondly, it's just a mess. It is a mess. It is incompetent. It is corrupt. That is an enormous political problem for the Biden White House. It's a political problem for the Biden DOJ, which I think wants to indict President Trump. And they now have an obvious double standard that is jumping off the page. But the next steps, there are two big next steps. Number one, we need to finish examining what other classified documents Joe Biden has failed to keep secure. That means that the FBI needs to search. There are over 1,850 boxes of documents from Biden's tenure in the Senate that are at the University of Delaware. I do a podcast 3 times a week. My last podcast on Verdict with Ted Cruz does a deep dive into this issue, walking through the legal issues, the vulnerabilities. I believe the FBI should search all of those 1,850 boxes of documents to determine if there are classified materials there. But additionally, I believe the FBI needs to search the residences of Hunter Biden and any business offices of Hunter Biden to determine if there are classified materials there. Because if these classified materials in particular implicate Burisma, Ukraine, Communist China, payments going to Hunter Biden or Joe Biden's brother or the Biden family, then this shifts from a political problem to a very serious problem of criminal liability and major crimes. And so the FBI needs to search the University of Delaware archives, and they need to search Hunter Biden's home and business addresses.
Just as an addendum to this, the news came out today, I'm sure you saw it, that former Vice President Mike Pence, a friend of both of ours, he's found some classified documents, I think at his home in India, not in his office. What do you make of that? Is this different from the Biden story? Does this complicate the story? Are we going to continue the bull market in special counsels? I'd rather have a bull market in stocks than in special counsels. How do you see it, Senator Cruz?
Oh, look, the Mike Pence story, it's still early. Mike Pence, and as you noted, he is a good friend. He's a good man. He's explained where these came from. What his office has put out is that in packing up the vice presidential offices, that there were a couple of papers that were classified that were inadvertently put with non-classified materials. That was a mistake, but there's no reason to think it was anything but inadvertent. That is very different from what Joe Biden has done. Joe Biden has given zero explanation as to how these classified documents got there. And in particular, he has given no explanation as to how he has documents from his time in the Senate. Listen, I've served in the Senate for 10 years. I have read a lot of classified documents. 100% of the classified documents I have read have been in the SCIF in the basement of the Capitol, the secure facilities. You go in there, you give them your phone, you give them your AirPods, you give them your Fitbit, you give all electronics, you sit behind giant steel doors and concrete, you read the documents there, you sign them out, you read them there, and then you sign them back in. In my entire time in the Senate, I have never read a classified document anywhere other than in the SCIF. There are enormous questions what the heck Joe Biden was doing with classified documents at his house from his Senate tenure. Look, we know during the Bill Clinton presidency, Sandy Berger, the national security advisor, literally took classified documents and stuck them into his underwear to smuggle them out of a secure SCIF. It raises an obvious question: where did these documents come from? and Biden so far has refused to answer them. And Karine Jean-Pierre, it has been painful to watch as what she says every day is proven false literally the next day.
Well, I think on that one, I'm somewhat sympathetic because I don't think this cabal in the White House, whoever is running it, tell her anything. Senator, last one. I want to come back to my opening riff, if you will. We've talked about this before, but I really believe now, save America, stop spending. All right, we have a debt problem. The underlying problem, though, is really spending. And as you know, these spending programs, whether they're social welfare programs or Green New Deal program, they come with tons of regulations and frequently taxes assigned to them. I mean, we need to stop spending, sir. And I think McCarthy's got it right, and the president should be negotiating with him.
Well, Larry, you and I frequently agree. I got to say, I listened to your opening monologue, and I agreed with every syllable of every word you started the show with.
Thank you, sir.
We are facing a debt crisis, and you as well.
Yes.
We're facing a debt crisis. The rampant inflation in this economy is caused by out-of-control spending. And to put it in perspective, let me add a few more stats to the ones you started with. The year 2000, which doesn't seem that far away. In the year 2000, you know what the national debt is, but let me talk to some of your viewers. You know what the national debt was? $5 trillion in the year 2000. Now, what happened in the year 2000? We had a Republican come in, George W. Bush, and in 8 years of the Bush presidency, we went from $5 trillion to $10 trillion. So we doubled the national debt. 42 presidents had built up $5 trillion in debt. The 43rd president doubled it to $10 trillion. 2008, Barack Obama comes in. The national debt is $10 trillion. 8 years later, the national debt again had doubled to $20 trillion. So at this point, in just 16 years, two presidents, one Republican and one Democrat, had quadrupled the national debt from $5 trillion all the way up to $20 trillion. Now, we're 6 years later, and we've gone from 20 to $31 trillion. This is reckless. And if you look at how great nations rise and fall, you look at the Roman Republic and the Roman Empire, printing yourself into bankruptcy, inflating the currency. You look at the Weimar Republic and people buying a loaf of bread with a wheelbarrow full of cash. The Democrats in Washington are trying to take us down that road, and you are exactly right that with this new Republican majority in the House, we need to use every lever we have to stop this out-of-control spending and debt that is driving rampant inflation and that is hurting Americans all across our country.
No, I appreciate it very much. Kevin McCarthy's coming on in just a few moments, so we want to leave it there. Senator Ted Cruz, it's great to see you. We haven't seen you this new year, and we appreciate it very much, as always, sir.
Thank you, Larry.